Hello, everyone. I'm Samantha Katcher, and I'm a PhD candidate at Tufts, and I'll be talking about a survey of experiences of safety and belonging in the cybersecurity community. So we all know that security is important, and there's been a long-standing hiring shortfall in security. So to address these hiring shortfalls, there have been efforts to surge hiring in this area, especially in the federal government, including an executive order from the White House. So unfortunately, while the number of cybersecurity professionals is growing, the diversity of the workforce remains limited. SOUPS Cybersecurity Diversity and Inclusion Report has 300 participants that were asked about their feelings of belonging in the community and challenges faced in entry and participation. So this survey showed marginalized populations were significantly more likely to feel excluded from the security community and more likely to believe that there was a glass ceiling on their success. And 91% of women felt like they didn't have the same opportunities as their male counterparts. So this lack of diversity indicates an equity problem. There's limited opportunities for people from marginalized populations to participate in entry-level security challenges, such as bug bounties, or to transition into potentially lucrative and in-demand careers in information security more broadly. This lack of diversity is also a problem as a field. There are many eyes with varied perspectives are necessary to avoid blind spots and discover as many potential vulnerabilities as possible before a malicious party does. So my work investigates these results in greater detail to understand why these feelings of otherness exist in marginalized populations and identify specific challenges faced. As we go through this talk, I'll be talking about marginalized populations quite a bit, which that is women, people of color, indigenous populations, and LGBTQ individuals. So it's important to think more about how we change this career field to make it more inclusive. So in some prior work that we did, we investigated what challenges people face in participating in the cybersecurity workforce. And we asked 16 participants from various marginalized backgrounds about their background and their career trajectory, as well as challenges in their environment, questions about self-efficacy and their goals and aspirations. We found that there were both challenges exacerbated by being a marginalized person, like a lack of resources or unhelpful mentoring, but also challenges unique to being a marginalized person, like having difficulty being taken seriously or experiences of sexism and racism. Additionally, in other prior work investigating non-marginalized populations, we observed the same set of general issues. For example, that it's hard to find early career positions. However, the non-marginalized groups relied on their communities to overcome challenges to begin in the cybersecurity jobs, while marginalized populations felt othered by the community. This motivated our further investigations into how cybersecurity professionals interact with their community. So the prior studies showed that community is important, so we wanted to learn more about the community. So we asked them these 3 research questions about perception and belonging and their social experiences, about what sub-communities that they participate in, as well as specific supportive and unsupportive experiences. So to answer these questions, we conducted an online survey that I'll describe next. So to begin the survey, we started with a set of questions focusing on understanding the participants' perceived belonging and answering the first research question. In this section, we used a set of validated psychometric measures investigating different aspects of belonging perceptions. Specifically, we used the 3 measures shown here, and the citations for each are given at the bottom of the slide. So first, psychological safety, which is whether participants feel safe to express themselves, to take risks, and to ask questions. Belonging uncertainty, which is whether participants feel like they belong in the community. And the vulnerability discovery self-efficacy scale, which is whether participants believe that they have the appropriate cybersecurity skills. Next, we asked questions about participants' actual experiences of belonging. Again, we used scales drawn from prior work. So this included a social experience measure of how often participants experience positive and negative interactions, as well as hate and harassment questions from Thomas's SOK paper about how often participants experience specific types of hate and harassment. After we'd asked about their general belonging perceptions and experiences, we focused on what subcommunities they participate in. So for example, this includes things like school security clubs and professional security organizations. For each subcommunity, we asked whether they participate and how helpful they find it. Then we asked 2 open-ended questions about where participants could share examples of particularly positive and negative experiences when interacting with the cybersecurity community. And we concluded with some demographics questions. So the survey was 15 minutes long and on Qualtrics. We recruited utilizing experts in our network through social media, emails, handing out business cards at conferences, and through a Qualtrics panel. So our 342 participants were divided by gender and race and ethnicity, so most of our participants identified as men or women. The vast majority of our participants identified as either white or of European descent, Black or of African descent, and or Hispanic and Latino. Our participants were mostly located in the US. The majority of our participants reported having taken at least 1 programming class in high school, and on average, participants reported 7.5 years of security experience and had job titles that included leadership positions and technical positions, as well as specialized roles related to security analysis and engineering, and even some holding more senior roles like senior security officer or CISO. So we have a lot of results from this study, but I'm just going to focus on the perceptions of belonging and our open responses for brevity. So let's get started with the first research question. So this is the psychological safety scores that are divided by genders and ethnicities. So the lower the score, the less safe somebody feels. And so the average score was 65.5, which is in the bottom quartile of scores from a cross-industry benchmark. And so the average belonging uncertainty was lower, indicating less uncertainty than samples from prior work. So what that means is that our participants overall feel like they belong, but they don't feel comfortable speaking up in the community. Focusing specifically on severe instances of negative social experiences, namely violence, stereotyping, doxing, and sexual advances, we found women were 1.2 times more likely to report more frequent severe harassment than men. So with that being said, severe harassment was also more common among participants who entered the field earlier. So now digging further into this idea, the third research question was looking more specifically at supportive and unsupportive experiences. So women were also significantly more likely to describe encountering unsupportive environments than men. Women experience more unsupportive, negative, identity-based incidents as well. So one participant shared, "I had a project with a colleague who is not anywhere near as technical as I am, yet he consistently tried to micromanage my technical work and sometimes told me that I was doing things wrong, even though he didn't know what he was talking about." Men more often reported never having unsupportive experiences. So some participants explicitly said they had no supportive or unsupportive experiences in their open responses. Men were more likely to not have those unsupportive experiences than women reported. And there were multiple mentions of toxic experiences from all genders. So one participant shared, "A somewhat close friend I had made through a cybersecurity forum had made quite a few uncomfortable sexual remarks, which made me question if cybersecurity as a whole was like this or if this was an isolated incident." So there is a clear gender disparity in the community's experiences, and we confirmed that women experience more unsupportive, negative identity-based incidents than their male counterparts. And psychological safety is low for everyone. Additionally, our results show that there's a lack of safety more generally in this community. So how can we do this? Our results indicate a need to improve the culture in cybersecurity to make more safe and inclusive environments, especially for women and gender minorities and early career cybersecurity professionals. So to this end, we draw on some existing best practices in psychological safety that have been evaluated in other domains to provide recommendations for cybersecurity organizations. The first step is building a more inclusive environment and setting the stage. It's important to establish a safer and more inclusive community, and for leaders to emphasize the value of safety and inclusivity, and clearly frame participation in cybersecurity as open to all. So there's been positive movements in this direction with organizations like Share the Mic in Cyber, and conferences adopting codes of conduct and diversity and inclusion statements. It's important that these messages are repeated regularly and within all the sub-communities. So while setting the stage is important for creating a shared vision in the community, it's not as meaningful if action is not taken to foster that inclusivity. Action is not only the responsibility of leaders, but all members, because parts of the cybersecurity community lack clear leaders and structure. So unfortunately, the low psychological safety observed suggests that cybersecurity professionals may be less likely to stand up as allies. So to counter that, encourage being an ally and bystander intervention, more empathetic responses, and a transition away from victim blaming. So, and finally, it's important for cybersecurity professionals to experience actual safety when participating in the community through demonstrated support. On one side, this involves sanctioning clear instances of hate and harassment. Survey responses that we received included incidents that would violate any code of conduct, so it's important that these actions are sanctioned publicly to demonstrate the community's commitment to inclusivity. We should also be careful to show empathy to others in the community, especially beginners, when they're asking annoying questions and they're still just not getting it even after your explanation, but they're clearly trying their best. All in all, we should practice patience and provide constructive support to avoid further entrenching insecurities and imposter syndrome in our field. As we wrap up here, this research really underscores the importance of addressing demographic differences in perceived belonging and community experiences among cybersecurity professionals. It's evident that certain groups face unique challenges and barriers within our field, which hinder their sense of growth and belonging and their professional experiences overall. So more work is needed to change the culture so that cybersecurity is inclusive and supportive for everyone. So thank you so much for having me here today, and I'm happy to take any questions.